For my speech today, I'm going to be teaching you how to make homemade pasta, or pasta dough rather, into noodles. The number one thing people usually say when they're making pasta, or reason not to make pasta, is too time consuming, or they don't have the ingredients, when there's really only 4 basic, cheap, and easy to acquire ingredients. You've got flour, eggs, olive oil, and salt. All you need is 4 cups of flour, a half dozen eggs, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of olive oil. What you're going to want to do first is mix up your eggs, your olive oil, and your salt into a little bowl so that they're all one homogeneous mixture. Second, you're going to want to get your 6 cups of flour, put them onto the table, just throw them all together. 2, 3, and then 4. You want to form all your flour into one mound to get it as even as you can. The higher the edges you get, the better. And you want to kind of press one decent sized hole into the center of the flour. And this is where you're going to be pouring your egg mixture into. Alright, next, for this, you're going to slowly pour your egg into the middle of your flour. I normally just do it about half the bowl at a time, and then just kind of whisk lightly the top of your egg while slowly incorporating the flour from the outside into it, kind of firm it up. Sometimes you can do this until it's milky, and then people start mixing it and kneading it. I prefer to get it as mixed up as I can. That way you have less of a mess when you start to knead your dough. Alright, after you've got that mixed up enough, add the rest of your egg. Mix the rest of your egg up. Get as much flour incorporated as you can. You can actually just press a bit of your flour in if you want to speed it up. Okay, after you're going to get your stuff mixed up, and I just spilled my egg, but kind of form it all into a ball and then fold it over on top of itself. Now, if you don't mix it up enough, like I did, your egg is going to run off to the side. But just kind of form it up with your hands, keep it as tight and compact as you can, and then just keep folding the flour over the top of it. And eventually, you will start to get somewhat of a combined mixture. This part is probably the only difficult part of actually making it. You're going to have a lot of the egg stuck to your fingers. You want to scrape as much off as you can, because if you just scrape the egg from your hands into the trash, you're probably going to end up with a really dry dough, and then it's not going to want to form as well. It's going to be too stiff, and it's going to end up tasting bad. Alright, after kneading your dough, to save time, I prepared I prepared one ball of dough already done. What you're going to do is after you form it, you can have one decent size ball of dough. Preferably, you're going to want to cut it into fourths. Separate it, take your fourths out. If you want, you can actually do it into halves, but for what we're doing, get your dough, flatten it out the best you can, and then save time and labor. Most people do is they use a hand crank, but we have a KitchenAid mixer with a pasta roller attachment. What you want to do is start out on the lowest setting, your number one setting, and actually, you might want to flour up your dough, that way it doesn't stick to the KitchenAid. Feed your dough through the mixer. And it thins it out a little bit. What you want to do after that, go to number 2. You can speed it up a little bit. Feed it through again. And then pretty much you just wash, rinse, repeat, go through all the different settings. And then you have your pasta sheet. After you have your pasta sheet, you want to lay it down and try to keep it from sticking to itself. Get your knife, cut it off, and then cut it into about as long as you want your noodles to be, or whatever you're making. If you make ravioli, you can keep it thinner and cut it to squares. But then you're just going to dice it however you want your noodles. I mean, obviously, it depends on what you're going to be making. But that's pretty much the gist of it. After you get it into rolled into pasta sheets, you do what you want from there. And that's my speech. This is my audience.